All right, simplifying rationals. So rationals are basically fractions. Okay, numbers that can be written as fractions are rationals. So we're going to look at expressions as fractions. Okay. So what we're going to do is factor both the numerator and the denominator of the fraction. So numerator is just your top, denominator is the bottom. And then we're going to reduce the fraction. So these first few examples have already been factored. Okay, so they're already in factored format. We're going to look at the reducing the fraction part. Okay, so in order to reduce fractions, when you have expressions, you need the same thing on the top and on the bottom, but being multiplied. If you have x squared plus 4 on the top and x squared on the bottom, you cannot cancel these out because this x squared is being added to a 4. So you can't just take away the x squareds. What you can do is if you had a 4x squared where these two things are being multiplied, and then an x squared on bottom, then you can cancel these out. But when something's being added or subtracted to something else, you can't just cancel out the two, okay? Order of operations says you have to divide before adding and subtracting, right? So you can't just cancel out one of the things that's being added to another with something that's being divided. It doesn't work that way, okay? But if you had an x squared plus 4 on top and an x squared plus 4 on the bottom, okay, the top and bottom are both exactly the same. So these two things could cancel out, leaving you a 1 as your answer. Okay, this is what we're going to be looking at doing today. So this one's already in factored format. Okay, so I'm looking to see if I have the same factor on top as I do on the bottom. I have a 2x plus 3 on top and a 2x plus 3 on the bottom. So these could cancel out. I don't have an x minus 1 on the bottom. I don't have a 3 that could cancel out with anything on top. So my answer would just remain as x minus 1 divided by 3. Okay, and this would be my answer. Let's look at the second example. I have an x minus 1 on top, and some people might say, oh, and then you have an x minus 1 on bottom. No. This is a 2 times x minus 1, and this is an x minus 1. They are not the same. I cannot just cancel out this part and leave that 2 there. That's not how it works. Whatever's in this parentheses needs to be in the other one for them to be able to cancel out. Okay, so since this x doesn't have a 2 and this one does, these cannot cancel. The only things that could cancel or simplify would be this 8 that's being multiplied out front and then 4 that's being multiplied on the bottom. Okay, if there was a plus or minus sign here, I couldn't simplify these, but since this is multiplied, because it's times this parentheses, and this is multiplied times this parentheses, I can simplify 8 divided by 4, which is 2. So my answer would be a 2 times 3x plus 4 times x minus 1 divided by 8 divided by 4 is 2 over 1. Okay, so I left the 2 on top. The 1 on bottom, I don't have to put the 1 being multiplied up front. I could just put the 2x minus 1. And this would be my answer. Okay, let's look at this one on the bottom. Okay, so 4x cubed, it's just one term. You can't factor anything out of this, it's just one term. On the bottom, we have 2 terms. So we want to see the GCF for both of these terms. Okay, both terms are divisible by 2. Okay, they also both have at least one x. This one has 2 x's, but this one only has 1, which means they only have 1 in common. So our GCF would be a 2x. So what we're going to do is we're going to rewrite this to be 4x cubed over, and I'm going to factor out my GCF. So I'm essentially dividing everything by a 2x, right? So 2x squared divided by my GCF of 2x. 2 divided by 2 is 1. And if you have two x's on top and you take one away, that leaves you just an x. So I'm putting my GCF out front, and then I factored it out of that first term, leaving me just an x. And then on my second term, if I did 2x divided by a GCF of 2x, that leaves you just 1. So we have x plus 1. Okay. Trying to move this down. All right. All I did is factor out the things that these two both have in common, their GCF. If you distributed it, 2x times x is a 2x squared, and 2x times 1 is a 2x. Okay. So all I did is rewrite it, but in factored form, so that I could see if there's something I could cancel out on top. Well, 2x and 4x cubed can simplify. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And if you have 3 x's on top, 1x cancels out one of the 3, leaving you a 2x squared. So we get 2x squared divided by x plus 1 as our final answer. Okay, because this simplified, 4 divided by 2 is 2 over 1, so the 1 would stay on the bottom, right? 1 times x is x, 1 times 1 is 1, and then you have that 2x squared on top. Let's look at another example. I just have 1x up top. On the bottom I have two terms, so I want to find their GCF, okay? What is the GCF for these two? 4, you have 1 times 4 and 2 times 2. With 6, you have 1 times 6 and 2 times 3. So the greatest common factor that they both have is a 2. This one has 3 x's, this one only has 1 x, so they only have 1 x in common. Okay, so that's what I'm going to factor out. So basically I'm dividing both of these things by the GCF to simplify. So I have x divided by, and I'm going to put my GCF out front, 2x. And then I want to simplify each of these terms by factoring out that 2x, because the 2x came out of each of these terms to go on the outside. So 4x cubed divided by my GCF. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And then if you have 3 x's on top and 1 on the bottom, the 1 on bottom cancels out one of the ones on top, leaving you an x squared. And the next term, 6x divided by divided by 2x. X's cancel, and 6 divided by 2 is 3. Oops. Alright, so sorry, my phone died. Alright, so 6x divided by 2x is 3. Okay. So we bring down this minus here, and then replace 6x with what's simplified to be 3, right? And now we want to simplify, so I have an x on the top and an x being multiplied on bottom, so those two can cancel, leaving you a 1 on top and a 2 times 2x squared minus 3 on the bottom. All right, just 3 more and then we're done. So 4x minus 6, just a little simple binomial here. Your GCF, notice they don't both have an x. So GCF for 4, and then the GCF for 6, 1 times 6, 2 times 3. So their GCF is just 2. Okay, so we're gonna factor this to be 2. 4x divided by 2 is a 2x. And then negative 6 divided by 2 is a negative 3. Okay, so the first one is factored now. Bottom one, we have a trinomial, so we are going to do our x box. A times c and our b. So my a is 2, b is 1, and c is a negative 6. Notice my a is 2. Right? So you got to go back and look at this later on. 2 times negative 6 is negative 12. And then my b is just 1. So everything that multiplies to be 12 is 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. They multiply to be a negative 12, so 1 would need to be negative. They stay positive, so your bigger one always matches the b value, right? So b is positive, my bigger ones are positive. And we're going to have negative 3 plus 4 is a positive 1. Okay, so my factors would be the x minus 3 and x plus 4. We always have to go back and divide by our a values. So dividing by 2. 3 divided by 2 doesn't simplify, so we move it in front of our x to be 2x minus 3. 4 divided by 2 is 2, so x plus 2. So I'm going to rewrite this. So on top, we factored 2 times 2x minus 3. And on bottom, we have 2x minus 3 times x plus 2. 2x minus 3 and a 2x minus 3 would cancel, leaving just a 2 on top and an x plus 2 on the bottom. So that would be your final answer. Okay, second one, I have a trinomial on top and bottom, so I'm going to x both of them. Okay, so I'll do an x for the top and an x for the bottom. So on top, my a is 1, which means I don't have to go back and divide the end when my a is 1. My b is 3, and my c is negative 4. A times c is negative 4, and my b is 3. So 1 times 4, 2 times 2. Making my smaller ones the negatives so that my b stays positive. So ones that equal 3 would be a negative 1 and a positive 4. Okay, so on top, we have factored this to be an x minus 1 and an x plus 4. And now for the bottom. My a is 1, b is 4, c is negative 5. So a times c is negative 5, b is 4. Okay, so 1 times 5, that's all I get. To stay positive, my larger one's positive, my smaller one's negative. So we can factor it to be x minus 1 and x plus 5. X minus 1 and x minus 1 cancel out. So your answer is just x plus 4 over x plus 5. Okay? If you want me to rewrite it, when you rewrite it, since you just have the one term on top, or the one binomial on top and the one binomial on bottom, you can drop the parentheses if you want. So x plus 4 over x plus 5. Last but not least, okay, so once again, my top one and my bottom one. So on top, my a is 3, so we've got to go back and remember to divide our a. B is 7, and c is 2. So a times c, 3 times 2 is 6, and my b is 7. So 1 times 6, 2 times 3. It multiplies to equal a positive number, adds to be positive, so we are keeping them both positive. The ones that add to equal 7 would be 1 and 6. So I have x plus 1 and x plus 6. But I've got to remember to go back and divide by my a. So divided by both by 3. 1 divided by 3 doesn't simplify, so I just slide that 3 in front of the x. And then 6 divided by 3 is 2, so x plus 2. So we have 3x plus 1 on top and x plus 2 on the bottom. 3x plus 1 and x plus 2 on top. And now we've got to find the bottom one. So a equals 1, b equals 8, and c equals 12. My a is 1, so I don't have to do the division part because dividing by 1 doesn't change anything. So 1 times 12 is 12. B is 8. 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. Which ones add up? So these will multiply to be a positive 12. Which ones add up? So you have positive 8, 2, and 6. So we get x plus 2 and x plus 6. So my x plus 2's are what cancel, leaving me a 3x plus 1 over an x plus 6. And that is it.